Alright, 7-7 Law of Cosines. Students will be able to solve triangles by using a Law of Cosines. I'm not going to have you guys memorize these, but this pattern here for this formula of the Law of Cosines is pretty easy to remember. You have your side A, right? So if you start with A, that means that you're going to square it, and you're going to equal to the other two sides squared, added together, and then subtract 2 times the other two sides times the cosine of the the opposite angle that you started with, from the side that you started with. So we start with A, so it's going to be the cosine of A. If we start with B, it's the cosine of B. C, we end with the cosine of C. So it's pretty simple. It looks complicated, but I'll have this up on the board for you guys. You just need to know how to use this. Now, I'm going to do example number 1, and then you guys are going to try practice number 1. I want to say this. Look, they're talking about triangle XYZ, so you're going to have to know how to plug things in. And it shouldn't really be that hard. You're just going to follow the pattern. You're just going to follow the pattern. Start with a side, square the other two sides, add them together, subtract the other two sides multiplied together, and by 2, and then the cosine of the angle that is opposite the side you started from, so C to C. So here we go. Let's do triangle ABC. We can make another triangle here, A, B, C. We could fill in our information. This side is 8. This side is 10, and this angle is 60. This is why we can't use law of sines here. Notice we don't have an opposite side, and we don't have any other angles, so we can't find a third angle. And also notice we have a side, angle, side. This one will be used with side, angle, side, and it could be used when you have side, side, side. Alright, so let's just use one of these formulas. We're trying to find A, so let's use this top formula. And it's going to be exactly the same. We're going to say that A squared equals my B squared, well my B is 10, squared, plus my C squared, well my C is 8, squared, minus 2 times 10 times 8 times the cosine of my angle A, which is 60. Alright, now all we have to do is solve this for A. Not really that bad. I mean, it's a lot of numbers, but it's not that bad. We have the A squared here, so we could go ahead and take the square root of both sides to get rid of this little thing. So if we take the square root of both sides, we end up with this giant square root. 10 squared is 100, plus 64. 2 times 10 times 8. Well, 10 times 8 is 80, times 2 is 160, so minus 160 times the cosine of 60. Now here's the deal. The cosine of 60, that is really, if you put in your calculator, it's just 1/2. Try it. Go ahead, put cosine 60 in your calculator, it's just 1/2. So I go on to the next step. We get A equals, well, 100 plus 64 is 164, minus, well, 160 times 1/2 is just 80. And so then A equals the square root of 164 minus 80, which is 84, which if we were to factor that, we could take out a 4 and a 21. The square root of 4 is 2, so we would have 2 rad 21. And you could plug that in your calculator, and you would get about 9.17. There you go. Alright, so that's how you can solve for parts of a triangle using the law of sines. So that's 9.17. I'm sorry, that's the law of cosines. Now you could, if you wanted to, you could put this in your calculator, or you could set this up using law of sines and solve for your other angles. And there you go. You could solve for the whole triangle. What I want you guys to do is try practice number 1 now. They're giving it to you as XYZ. So try drawing a triangle again, see what you have, and see if you could set up the equation how it should be. Just try that first. Just see if you could write out the equation like it should be. And I'll put the correct answer up in just a second. Okay, so you should have got this equation here. You're solving for x. So you're going to put the x all by itself, square it. Then that means the other two sides are going to be squared and added together, minus 2 times the other two sides, times the cosine of the angle across from your original side. So cosine x. Alright, now you're just going to plug everything in and solve. I'm going to let you guys do that. I'll put the answer up in just a second again, so you may want to pause the video and work it out on your own. Okay, if you plug everything in, you get this whole mess, and then you simplify it down, you get to here, and you really can't go much farther than here without using a calculator, because cosine 75 is an irrational number. So you plug it all in, and you should get 16.6. There you go. Before we do example number 2, I want you guys to try another problem I'm going to do off on the side here. So let's say I gave you a triangle like this, and let's say the sides were 18, 23, and 37, and let's say we called this A, B, C. How could you use the law of cosines to find angle A? Well, let me show you, okay? We have all the sides, if you think about it, right? We have side A, we have side C, and we have side B. So we would plug it all in the same way, but we would have to solve for the angle. So let's write it all out. Here's the formula, right? A squared. Sorry, not a plus. It should be an equal. B squared plus C squared minus 2AB cosine A. Well, cosine A is what we're solving for. So we need to get this all by itself. So we could do that just with the variables here, or we could plug it in and then solve. I'm going to plug it in and then solve. I think it's a little bit easier to do that way. So here we go. 23 squared equals B squared, which is 37 squared, plus C squared, which is 18 squared, minus 2 times my A, which, oh, I'm sorry, that should not be an A there. It should be a BC, my bad, because it should be the same two letters here as it is right here. So my B is 37, my C is 18, times the cosine A, which is what I'm trying to solve for. Okay, work all this out. You get that 23 squared is 529. 37 squared is 1369. 18 squared is 324. 2 times 37 times 18 is 1332. And cosine A. Again, that's going to be the thing that we're trying to solve for. Okay, so 1369 plus 324 is 1693. And so we can write that all out. We could subtract that from both sides, which gives us 1164 equals, I'm sorry, that'd be a negative 1164 equals negative 1332 cosine A. Remember, this is this 1332 is multiplied by the cosine A. So let me move everything around here so we can keep working on it. So we can divide both sides by negative 1332, and we get that these guys would cancel out, and so we would be left with just that the cosine of A equals, and these are both negative, so it becomes positive, 1164 over 1332. So what we need to do to get the A all by itself is take the arc cosine of both sides, and so finally we end up with this. And now we're ready finally to plug all that into our calculator. I realize that that's long and a little bit frustrating, but it's not hard math. It's all just basic algebra. Until this last step, this is the only really new step, taking the arc cosine, and you guys should know how to do that by now. So let's just plug it all in the calculator, see what we get. And I got about 29.1 degrees for angle A. And there we go, we've solved it. And now that you've solved it, you could go back, put the 29.1 in, and then you could use law of sines across from these two, compared it to these two, and then these two, and solve for all the rest. Because law of sines is obviously a lot simpler than this, but just showing you that you can use that to solve. All right, let's go on to the next problem. Okay, this problem says that Miss Jenkins is buying some property that is shaped like the quadrilateral ABCD over here. Find the perimeter of the property. That's all they want. They want the perimeter. So I'm going to let you think about this for a little bit. Let's explain a couple things. They want the perimeter, so they want this whole distances all the way around. We already have 3 sides, so we just need this 4th side. Once we find the 4th side, we just add it all up. How are we going to find that 4th side, though? Well, we have a side of a triangle and an angle of a triangle. Maybe if we had one more side, we could solve for that side. So we need to be able to find this side, and then we could probably use the law of cosines to figure it out. So I want to let you guys just try this on your own. So you should pause the video, see if you could figure out side BD, then see if you could figure out side CD using law of cosines, and then see if you can get the perimeter. Give it a try. So pause the video, and then I will show you how to do it in just a second. Okay, well, hopefully you saw that this 180 and this 240 are sides of a right triangle, so you can use Pythagorean theorem. And even easier than that, if you take 180 and divide it by 60, and whatever this is, divided by 60, you would notice that you end up with a 3, a 4, and so this is going to be a 5. So you could really just figure out, okay, well, 180 divided by 60 is 3, 240 divided by 60 is 4, so what divided by 60 is 5? Well, you could just multiply 5 times 60, and you get that this side has to be 300. So hopefully you saw that this is 300 as a giant Pythagorean triple. So 300 feet right there. If you didn't know that, you could have still done the old 180 squared plus 240 squared, set it equal to this side squared, so it's maybe called a c squared, and solved, and you would have gotten 300. But hopefully you're recognizing the triples when you can see them. That's what makes your life so much easier. All right, well, now that you have this side, look, you have a side angle side of this triangle. Same thing we've been doing before. We're going to solve for this other side. So let's call this, lowercase b, and here's my other two sides, and here's my angle across from my side. So I have everything I need to set up a law of cosines problem. So we would say, using the formula up on top of this page, b squared equals the other two sides squared and added together, minus 2 times the other two sides multiplied together times 2, times the cosine of my angle. Okay, well, that's 40,000 plus 90,000, and 200 times 300 times 2 is 120,000. And cosine 60, if you remember, cosine 60 is just 1/2. So 1/2 of 120,000 is 60,000. And 40,000 plus 90,000 is 130,000. So I got b squared equals 130,000 minus 60,000. I should take the square root of both sides, giving me the b all by itself equals the square root, whatever this minus this is, which is 70,000. All right, I'm ready to go to my calculator because I don't know what the square root of 70,000 is. So the square root of 70,000 is 264.58. So we know that b is 264.58 feet. All right, awesome. Now all we got to do is find the perimeter. Well, that's just adding these all together. So 200 plus 180 plus 240 plus 264.58. What is that? Plug that all in. I get that the perimeter is 884.58 feet. And there you go. We just solved for the perimeter of this thing. All right. I'll see you guys next year.